Hello there, you're watching the Press Preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we will see what's making the headlines with the barrister and former government minister, Anna Soubry, and political editor at the HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. Welcome to you both. Thanks for being with us in the studio here today, or not in the studio, but remotely with us today. Let's have a look first at what is on some of those front pages. The Guardian leading on our top story. The Metropolitan Police have called on the SAS for counter-terrorism support after armed officers downed weapons. That is also on the front of the Express. The headline, Rebellion by Gun Cops forces soldiers to step in. The Times also leads with this story. It says the Home Secretary sought to quell the dispute by announcing she would protect firearms police from being brought to court. The newspaper says more than 100 economists are warning the Prime Minister that his climate policy U-turn will raise the cost of living. The Metro new figures show almost 400,000 patients spent 24 hours or longer in A&E in the past year. That is leading on the Metro. The Yorkshire Post has Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham saying people in the north of England are being treated like second-class citizens by facing a choice between HS2 and a cross-Pennine east-west route. Well, meanwhile, the FT says Russia is benefiting from the surge in oil prices after successfully avoiding G7 sanctions on most of its exports. The Mirror says Manchester United's Marcus Rashford has walked away unhurt from a car crash while driving home last night. That same story leading in The Sun. It says the star striker, his £700,000 Rolls Royce was wrecked in the crash. And the Star warns of 80 miles per hour winds, power cuts and travel chaos as Storm Agnes rolls towards Northern Ireland later this week. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers all while you watch us. Well, we are joined, as I said, tonight by barrister and former government minister Anna Soubry and political editor at the HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. Great to have you with us both. Let's begin with the Yorkshire Post. We're going to start with this HS2 story. And, of course, it's fitting to go to Yorkshire on this. Their headline on this, North-South chasm warning on HS2. And they quote Andy Burnham, in fact, on Sky News in our interview this morning with Andy Burnham, talking about second-class citizens, the people of the north of England being treated as second-class citizens, facing a choice between HS2, i.e. being connected to the south, or cross-Pennine east-west route. Anna Soubry, let's start with you. Is this a mistake from Rishi Sunak?
Sorry, I didn't catch that last bit about is it a mistake by Rishi Sunak?
Is it a mistake? If they do end up rowing back.
Huge mistake. Andy Burnham's absolutely spot on. And he's not alone in thinking that the government has got this badly wrong for all sorts of reasons. Look, any infrastructure costs an extraordinary amount of money. And every infrastructure project of any significance that I can think of, like the Channel Tunnel, was always controversial because they do gobble up money. But goodness me, we need to invest in our infrastructure. We have to take that hit of the extraordinary expense. You can't imagine not having the Channel Tunnel. And for HS2 to be cut off now, it was bad enough when they cancelled the line to Leeds. But now to think that it won't go beyond Birmingham and it won't even go into London, it'll be 6 miles north of Euston. I think this is a terrible mistake for all sorts of reasons. And politically, I think Sunak's going to pay a price on this.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that price. Kevin Schofield, I wonder if you think also that he will pay that price. He is known as the long-term guy. Is this a long-term sort of decision?
Well, he'd like to paint himself as Mr. Long-Term Decisions. This would strike me as a pretty short-term cost-cutting measure. I mean, just reputationally for Britain, it would look awful. You know, that originally the line was meant to run from London, the central London, to Birmingham, onto Leeds, onto Manchester. If it was to stop in Birmingham, it would just be a national embarrassment, effectively. And we've already spent billions and billions of pounds. And if they were to stop now, or after the line to Birmingham was completed, then what has it all been about? Now, the problem as well is that he has let this story run now for quite some time. We had Jeremy Hunt last week talking about costs spinning out of control. We had Grant Shapps on the broadcast round this morning giving a succession of non-answers, casting huge doubt over the future of HS2. And if he was to perform a volte face now and say, actually, you know what, we are going to continue with it, even that would look a bit silly because he's allowed the belief to get out there that he was actually planning to drop it. So it's been handled really, really badly.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, in terms of how he's playing it, presumably a political decision, he's seen that there is this sort of red meat for those who don't want to vote for climate policies or infrastructure policies that will hurt their own pockets. However, what about his funders? The Guardian here on their front page, Tory donor threatens to pull cash over HS2. Now, this is an anonymous donor, but of course it comes after John Caldwell, the founder of Phones for You, already threatened to pull cash out from the Conservatives. This is a billionaire Tory donor over the rowing back on net zero pledges. Anna, I mean, I wonder what you make of this. Is it actually not going to be that helpful for him when it comes to finding, his own donors?
I know. I think he's, as I say, for all sorts of reasons. I mean, obviously, Kevin's touched on the political implications, what looks like a weakness because they've not made a decision and the way they've handled it so badly. But there is also the fact that business is now turning towards Labour and seeing that actually they think, well, businesses say they trust Labour to do a better job with the economy, and indeed that's borne out by the opinion polls of voters. And of course, people who are involved in business know and understand about the importance of investing in infrastructure. And of course, I was part of that 2010 Parliament that voted for HS2. And it was after a terrific amount of debate and controversy. We knew it was going to cost shed loads of money. And I'm sure that there are better ways of managing the overall spend so it doesn't run out of control. But, as Kevin says, to stop it now, I mean, it's just will make us even more of an international laughingstock. And there will be so many business people who will be utterly dismayed about this, not just up in Manchester, but also in the Midlands and indeed even, if you like, in London, because they know how important it is that we do have good, decent infrastructure, public transport like this. Yeah. It's not just about speed, it's about capacity and connectivity, critical.
Hello again, you are watching the Press Preview. With me now are Anna Soubry and Kevin Schofield. Let's get straight back into it with our top story, in fact, which is on the front page of several papers. Met Police request support from SAS after officers down firearms. That is the front page of The Guardian. Kevin, I guess this all comes down to the sort of risk appetite of, the way that the UK deals with its policing. Different countries do it differently. There is, a different amount of responsibility given to armed officers. Was this issue, do you think, a long time in the making?
I think perhaps. I mean, this is obviously a very specific issue regarding a firearms officer being charged with murder. His colleagues clearly very upset about that and have down tools, which is a remarkable state of affairs, such that now the Ministry of Defence is having to step in to help where required. And it's pretty embarrassing, really. And it's an astonishing state of affairs when the Home Secretary even is commenting on this, saying, typically for Suella Braverman, some pretty controversial things. So yeah, it's not a great state of affairs. And it's remarkable, the Met Police is rarely out of the news these days for all sorts of reasons, and this is just another to add to the list. So yeah, we have to hope that it gets resolved pretty quickly.
I wonder, Anna, if you agree with this. Is this another, can this be characterised as another in a sort of litany of scandals to hit the Metropolitan Police, or is this actually different? This is about armed officers adhering to rules and feeling that if they do so, they may get charged with murder or manslaughter, and that is quite scary for them, and they feel that they can't do their jobs unless they have a little bit more protection.
I have to say, I find it very difficult to engage with this discussion, which is obviously a legitimate discussion to be had after any trial. Of course it would be. And I'm really concerned that somebody who is accused of murder must have his fair trial. And it's for that jury to look at all the evidence. And then whatever the outcome, there may well then be these sorts of discussions. But as Kevin says, to have our Home Secretary, I mean, it's bad enough that police officers are putting down their arms and it almost, as you said, in protest. That in itself deeply troubling because, as I say, we cannot prejudge something that is in the criminal system. I think it's almost a contempt of court what the Home Secretary has done, which is effectively to make comment, critical comment, about that court case. And I just think this feels terribly wrong. I'm sure there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. No, and you're right. And we have to. You're absolutely right.
The way to do it.
And even here, we have to be very careful.
Criticism of Sky.
No, we do. Yeah. Well, no, I don't. No, absolutely no. And even here, we do have to be very careful about what we say about an open case, as you say.
Right.
Let's move to the Financial Times. So I do want to get this last story in. The FT. Birmingham turns to fix-it expert in the hope of salvation. Now, this is Max Caller. Kevin, just tell us a little bit about Max Caller, who's been called in to help bankrupt Birmingham City Council. What's his record and will he do it?
Yeah, well, he helped to revive Tower Hamlets. He was involved in an investigation into incidents at Liverpool City Council, helped revive Slough as well. So he does have a pretty good track record. He's certainly going to need all that experience and more, I think, to try and turn around Birmingham City Council's fortunes. They're obviously in a terrible financial situation, which will obviously impact local people in terms of the services that the council provides. So but he does have a good track record, and the hope is obviously that he'll be able to go in there,
and it will
shake
be.
things
It'll
up
certainly
and
be
improve their
exciting
fortunes.
to see how he does.